Hello, welcome to the online talk series of the European Vegan Summit. My name is Lena Anna Kuklińska, and I'm a volunteer at the Green REV Institute, the organizer of the European Vegan Summit, the operator of the Future Food for Climate Coalition, and the first and only vegan think tank in Poland. To keep you up to date in between the summits, we organize these talks with our 2022 guests, but not only, to go more in depth on some topics, events, etc. The first edition of the European Vegan Summit took place indeed in 2022, and I'm happy to share that the highly anticipated second edition will take place between the 19th and 21st of September 2023. Today, I will have the pleasure of interviewing Anastasia Trofimova, the co-founder and CEO of YourBeet, a food tech startup, an app that makes it super easy to transition to making more healthy, sustainable, and personalized food choices. It takes one look at YourBeet's Instagram, linked below, to see that the team educates and advocates by showing how colorful, varied, and delicious plant-based food can actually be. Welcome, Anastasia. Good to see you again.
Thank you so much, Lena, and it's a pleasure to be here again and to see you as well.
For those who don't know, Anastasia was a guest at the first edition of the European Vegan Summit on the panel Listen to Vegan Startups. So without further ado, I would like to jump to our first question because it's actually linked to your participation in the first edition. Could you tell those who didn't have a chance to see you at the summit what YourBeet actually is? How did you come to be, and what has changed since September 2022?
Now, all wonderful questions, and I'm happy to share actually updates because it has been quite a lot of updates for us since September 22. We've really caught momentum, so it feels great to reflect on this time since September. But YourBeet, so what we do, it's a full digital platform, and the purpose of it is to accelerate the global consumer transition to more healthy and sustainable foods. And we actually leveraged current existing research quite a lot in understanding what is it that prohibits people to make this transition, or what are the biggest barriers. And one of this research actually was done by Yale University in the US. And they surveyed people around whether they would like to eat more plant-based. And 90% of people that they have surveyed said that, yes, they actually want to eat more plant-based foods. And that was even before COVID or the pandemic happened. But then they asked, okay, but how many of you actually, eat plant-based or a plant-rich diet? And only less than 10% actually did. So it's a huge discrepancy between 90% wanting to and only less than 10% actioning. And I think I was definitely one of these people in this category until I had some health problems, which forced me to implement diet changes and transition to becoming more plant-based, which I have done so far and fixed my health since then. But the main reason, at least what I have experienced and what we have uncovered in our own user research later, is the fact that a lot of people want to, but they don't know how to. They don't know how to, and it's a very high effort process at the moment. So to make this transition or completely revamp your diet, your lifestyle, today it falls onto the consumers in the end of a long working day, right? We all know we come home after a long, busy, stressful day at 6, 7 p.m. and we still have to take care of kids and do other things. And so many things are on our mind. The last thing we want to do as people, as individuals, is to suddenly think, how should I eat completely different today? That's not how our brain works. Right? Our brain is wired to make the easiest choices, right? Or to take the easiest path. And of course, when it comes to diet or the way we eat, the easiest path is to do what you have been always doing, what comes on autopilot, right? Unfortunately, it's a fun fact that on average, we make every single day, we make around 220 food-related decisions every single day. So you can imagine that, and most of it are autopilot, right? So you can imagine if when you're changing your diet, suddenly most of those decision points become a conscious effort. None of us in this day and age have the time or the attention or the patience or the energy to do that kind of mental effort. So what we realized is that if we want to see a mass consumer transition to this healthier, more sustainable way of eating and way of living, we need to make it easy. So our approach with YourBeet, so what is YourBeet? Our ambition is to create something like Spotify, which is done an incredible job at revolutionizing how we all listen to music and curating our own personal playlists. So we want to follow the same approach, but in food. And what I mean by that is that our algorithm is designed so, using nutrition science and using personalization algorithms or methods to understand what you as a consumer like to eat, but also what you need to eat from a health perspective, from a nutritional intake perspective. And our algorithm creates that kind of recommendation of plant-based recipes, or as we internally call it, your own personal playlist of what you should eat this week. And then we connect it to grocery retailers so that you can also shop this personal playlist of plant-based recipes instantly with one click. So the whole journey of what should I have for dinner, planning, optimizing, and optimizing, for example, for budget or your kids' preferences, and then shopping your weekly food takes less than 1 minute with YourBeet. So it acts like your personal food coach that knows exactly what you need to eat and what you like to eat and what your family likes to eat, and takes into account all different preferences, dislikes, budget constraints, anything. And based on that information, based on that input, chooses the most optimized suggestions of plant-based recipes for you, and shows you actually how well it matches your nutritional content as well. So it is like a digital personal nutritionist as well. But the step that we have taken to make it further more actionable is connecting it to the grocery retailers, so that you not only get the answer of what you should eat, but you can actually action it, right? You can actually check out and shop that suggestion and get it delivered. I mean, in Sweden right now, we work with a grocery operator, and the groceries get delivered under 30 minutes at your door. So yeah, it's actually, yeah, we recently started to provide this service. And in the end, you can, yes, basically you can either choose to, when you are poor on time and you come home and you're tired, you're busy, and you haven't thought what's for dinner, you can either choose to go for Uber Eats or Foodora, which we all know is not the most healthy and definitely not the cheapest option in the long term. Or now you can opt for YourBeet, get your personalized recipe recommendation, which is plant-based, full of veggies and full of nutrition. And we're talking about micronutrients as well. And get it delivered home in the same amount of time, or already start eating that personalized, optimized meal for you in also under 40 minutes. So we kind of hope to disrupt both the grocery retail industry, because today it's still very much a warehouse of food, right? So if you think about grocery stores, there is no service, there's no connection to you. It's just a place that has stocks a lot of food, and you go there and you pick things at random. So we want to disrupt both the grocery retail industry and this last mile convenient food delivery services like Foodora or Uber Eats or Deliveroo, to shift or to create as convenient of a service or an option, but focused on healthy and sustainable food, and actually help people to improve their health in the process.
Wow, this sounds amazing. I mean, I wish to see this disruption everywhere in Europe, in Belgium, where I am right now, in Poland, everywhere, because this is indeed, it's very easy to fall victim to this autopilot and to just convenience of having a pizza delivered in 20 minutes when we don't have to do anything, but that takes away of our creativity. And I think this sort of joy of eating as well, if we just eat whatever is just delivered, and especially if we order the same thing every day, as sometimes we do, because again, autopilot. So, I mean, thank you for your explanation. This was very, I think, I don't have any other follow-up questions on what YourBeet is, but I was thinking more about how it actually works for you as the business owner. What does it mean to run a plant-based business? Do you have to face any obstacles that non-plant-based businesses don't have to face? For example, is it harder to obtain funding to convince investors to fund a startup that's vegan, plant-based?
I mean, this is my first startup that I'm running. I used to be in previous life a management consultant. So I would not be able to compare, right, if it's easier to fundraise or run a plant-based startup versus another startup. But I can absolutely talk about my own experience because we were very, very lucky. We are funded quite well, I would say, for, well, I don't know, maybe in general funded well for an early stage startup, I suppose. So we were very lucky that we found many mission-driven and impact-driven investors that wanted to back us from very early days when we just had this idea. So even before product was out on the market, we already closed our first round. And then recently we actually closed another round, but we are already earning revenue. So to your previous question, actually, where we are compared to September, in September, we just launched or did a big launch of our first ever MVP or first ever app version. So it's been now, what, 9 months. And we are now earning revenue as well. So, and that's pretty, and growing 40% month over month with 50% 8-week cohort retention. So it's actually been going very well for us with a very strong organic growth as well. So, and of course that always helps when you're fundraising. So we're not just fundraising on the mission and the fact that it's plant-based, but on the fact that it's also an incredible commercial opportunity. And I think that's always something that you need to showcase to the investors, because in the end of the day, yes, there are many mission-driven and impact investors that really, really want to see solutions created and executed for a better future. But still they're investors and they need to see also return on their investment. So being able to showcase that commercial model and also showcase the proof points of that commercial model, I would say are the two things that, especially in this climate, I would recommend every plant-based startup or any general startup to do. And I think in my case, what helped me a lot is my management consultant background, that I understand how to create a very strong commercial model and financial planning. So I kind of was lucky that I know the language of the investor. But that would be my strong recommendation for someone who doesn't have that commercial background, is to educate yourself and understand what it is that investors really want to hear when they're talking to other startups, because we have to remember that you are competing as a plant-based business. You're also competing with general startups out there. So that's what investors compare you to. So I would say that would be my strongest advice in that regard. But when it comes to plant-based specifically, of course, there has been quite a big challenge this last year, I would say, mostly driven by the economic landscape or the declining consumer purchase or spending power, because consumers or mass consumers still perceives plant-based as an alternative or kind of extra additional nice to have. And when there is an economic crisis, that's usually where the spend is cut first. So I know that, of course, plant-based brands and products have definitely felt that hit from a consumer spending perspective. we were lucky in that sense that we are a fully digital solution, so it's a little bit different. I mean, people still need to buy food, and our value proposition is that we're helping people to actually save both money and time on something that they would have done otherwise. So, and we're also helping them to improve their health in the process. So our value proposition still stands very strongly in this kind of climate. But yes, those would be my 2 cents, I suppose. Yes.
All right, thank you. So from what you have been saying, I'm trying to gather whether Sweden is actually vegan friendly. What are the attitudes towards vegan and vegetarian? Because I mean, I have this picture in my head, which is kind of based on my experiences traveling to Sweden, just a little bit, or knowing other Scandinavian countries, that yes, it is present and possibly getting more popular, but there's also this strong tradition of just very meat-based, very plain food as well. I would not say this is very elaborate, but the meat is always very present there. And I'm just also thinking whether my question is twofold. It's about the people, whether people are actually interested in veganism, and second, whether it's Sweden is vegan entrepreneur friendly as well. Whether I don't know if your funding comes from Sweden, but my question would be then: are Swedish investors more interested in plant-based solutions than the external ones, the foreign ones? And whether there are any administrative challenges that you had to face because of this? But I understood it weren't too many. You were quite lucky with the funding, but still, I'm trying to place you within the Swedish context on all levels.
Yeah, no, but let's break it down. So 2 main questions, right? So what is the adoption of veganism in Sweden, and then how investors viewing that as well. So on the first question, there actually, I think around 9% of Swedes are vegetarian, and I think only around 1 or definitely less than 2% are fully vegan or would consider themselves fully vegan. So I'm not sure how it compares to different countries, but you can use that as a benchmark. But I think what is very common in Sweden is that people are flexitarian, right? So the large portion of population is, at least would consider themselves flexitarian. So they are conscious about reducing their meat consumption, but they're not ready to abandon it completely, right? So, and I think especially among this kind of busy professional, as we call them, target audience, so working usually in corporate, in big cities, we definitely see that they adopt at least vegetarian during lunch, right? So when they don't make that food decision at home, but they go out, that's quite often actually the choice that that they would choose vegetarian, for example. Vegan is, I think Sweden is not quite there yet, from just my observation. I mean, 2% statistically, right? So I think there is a very strong, of course, cultural heritage of eating a lot of fish, especially, right? There's a lot of all the traditional dishes either contain fish or meat, right? So culturally, I mean, as in all other countries, I suppose, there is, of course, prevalence to eat fish or meat. But I think people are very conscious and very educated that eating meat is, if nothing else, not very sustainable. I think I would say that, like if you stop a person on the street in Stockholm, they would say they would recognize that fact, right? But of course, I think one of the barriers that we are trying to break as well, because consumers understand, but they don't really know what it means, right? They don't really, it's so hard to make this impact, both CO2 or even animal or health, tangible, right? It's such an intangible concept that that's why I think people it becomes too abstract, and people disconnect, right? And they continue to do what they do. So it's a lot of education, obviously, but then making it very easy for them is key, right? Unless it's easy, people will continue to do what they are used to doing, even though they kind of know in the back of their head that maybe they shouldn't, right? But it's just easy to fall into old habits, like we talked about before. But I think people are very conscious, and it's definitely a good market to be. So if it's a plant-based brand, I would say it's a good market to be from a consumer awareness perspective and adoption perspective, and curiosity definitely. But I think it's also a very small market. So something, if there is an international brand listening to this, Sweden is only 10 million people, right? So it's not the biggest market out there, but I would say it's quite relatively easy to test. So if you're a very early stage startup and you have a product you want to test on a small scale, Sweden is a great market for that, because there is a large ratio or proportion of population that would be interested and would adapt it quickly. It's just that number of that population is not very high. So that would be my 2 cents on the population side. And when it comes to investment, I mean, there is absolutely, there's ProVeg Incubator, I believe. And in general, I think the Malmö area in the south of Sweden has a lot of innovation when it comes to alternative food products. I believe there is a very big research center and lab. So a lot of innovation when it comes to food products actually comes from there. So there is definitely a community of investors that are interested in plant-based products or plant-based movement in general. But I don't qualify into that. So I don't actually have investors that are interested in plant-based products per se, because even though we call ourselves food tech startup, we are different in the sense that we don't produce products. We are not, alternative protein or alternative meat. We are a fully digital service. So our investors are much more impact focused. And that is a large community in Sweden, and especially in Stockholm. So there is actually a very big impact hub called Norrsken, or for international people, I would say Norsken, if you want to Google that, which means Northern Lights in Swedish. But it's a foundation that has been established by all the former unicorn founders of Sweden, like Klarna founder, Izettle, and so on. And the mission of this hub is to fund and support impact-driven businesses. And that absolutely includes everything to do with plant-based and overall changing our food system to become more sustainable and helping both people and the planet. So from that perspective, I think there is a very good community in Sweden of impact-driven investors. And we have definitely tapped into that network or that community. We will actually be doing the Norrsken Accelerator this year. So they select 15 companies each year globally to take part in that to help accelerate their business. So we're very, very excited about that opportunity. So I would strongly recommend for people who are also curious about Y Combinator. So this Norrsken Accelerator can be a fantastic alternative if you're an impact-driven business.
So I will now ask you about the future, because you've mentioned a lot of changes and possibilities that are coming up, and I'm curious how do you picture the future of YourBeet, and where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Yes. So actually, there's an interesting segue there, because talking about Norrsken Accelerator, because the way they select this 15 startups out of, I think, 3,000 that applied this year from all over the world, is they assess it on commercial opportunity, absolutely. But their number one criteria is actually, can this startup or this idea impact 1 billion lives? So can it actually become an impact unicorn, as they call it? And impact unicorn is improving 1 billion lives. And we were chosen as one of the startups. So I guess that's our potential, is to improve 1 billion lives. And I think that's definitely absolutely our ambition, and something that we absolutely can achieve with the right level of support and the right level of funding, and of course, the right approach to it, to the scaling as well, because as a digital service, we can scale very quickly, right? We don't need to build production plants or logistics, distribution, where we can, the only thing we need to do is plug into existing APIs of grocery retailers all around the world and start building our local communities of both food creators and users, of course. So it is very much similar to Spotify again in that sense. And that's the potential that our business can have. And if we, I mean, also fun fact maybe, but grocery retail is of course one of the largest industries in the world, right? It's a $10 trillion business today. And online grocery shopping, so people choosing to shop the groceries online, will 10x by 2030 in demand to $3 trillion. So it's absolutely massive in terms of scale business. And if you think about it, there's so few services out there that help to navigate consumers towards more healthy, more sustainable food choices, to more personalized food choices. So I'm very excited both in terms of the impact that we can create with our business. So for us, it's we're starting already to expand to the US. Hopefully we will be live either in the end of the year or in the beginning of next year. Yeah, which is obviously a 300 million population. So that will scale our business impact and of course the commercial opportunity as well. So that's what keeps me excited and you know, happy to wake up every day, and super looking forward to keep scaling this, because I know that with every new user that we have, it's another person who we're helping to improve their life, their life, their kids' life, and hopefully more generations to come. So it's such a positive impact that we can almost tangibly feel and see, and that of course keeps us very motivated.
And how, if one wants to support YourBeet, how can they do this?
Thank you so much for asking, Lena, and I really appreciate it. Well, the beauty of our product is that anyone can try it. It's available in most countries, unfortunately, without the grocery integration yet. The grocery integration is only available in Sweden so far. But anyone can try it and download the app. And if you found this talk useful or inspiring, I would really appreciate your help of actually trying it. So downloading it, trying it, and telling us, reaching out to us with your thoughts. So with your input of whether what you liked or what you thought could be improved. So we really invite, and that's something that we do with our users as well, is we really invite everyone to shape this solution with us, because everyone can do that. Everyone can help build this into the food of the future platform. So please take that initiative, or yeah, feel that you can do that you can build this with us. We really would appreciate your thoughts and your inputs. That is the most invaluable thing for us right now.
I'm very thankful for this conversation. I think a lot of people listening to us right now will find it not only very useful in a sense that you gave a lot of practical tips, but also just uplifting to see that vegan businesses and startups are just booming. They can be booming, and there's a lot of space for everybody to create and to popularize veganism.
Absolutely, absolutely. That would be my recommendation, is just keep going. Yes, it's a bit of a bump in the road right now with the economic situation, but we know the food system needs to change. And we know that we have billions of population of people that we need to feed and create more sustainable food systems. So keep going. Definitely don't give up. I mean, we're just in the start of this massive global transition that needs to happen. So it's not an if, it's a when. Right. So I would definitely encourage everyone to keep pushing through and being creative. If it's hard to find funding right now, being creative for different methods or different approaches. But to just push through, because the demand is going to only increase from here. It would be my bet.
Anastasia, thank you again for your time and your answers. I will link to YourBeet and app down in our description, as well as to all of your social media platforms, as well as the ones of the European Vegan Summit and the Green REV Institute. So
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lena Anna, for taking the time and following both with me and our journey. I really appreciate it, and a super big fan of the European Vegan Summit, and will follow and hopefully also participate in your next summit that will happen in September.
Yes.
So thank you so much for having me over.
Yes. So thank you all for listening to us, and see you in the next episode.